Pam Bondi stood at the news desk, calm but unwavering as the tension in the studio thickened. The air was electric. No one had expected the segment to take such a sharp turn. The liberal TV host smirked, his arrogance filling the room. He pointed at the delicate cross necklace resting just above Pam's collarbone. With a sneer, he scoffed, "That's some outdated trash you're wearing." Silence. The production crew froze. The audience watching live held their breath. Did he really just say that? Pam's expression didn't change. No anger, no shock, just a quiet, measured confidence. She reached for the cross gently, running her fingers over it. Then, with a steady voice that carried the weight of a lifetime of conviction, she spoke. "This trash, as you call it, represents everything that gives people strength, faith, resilience, and truth. And if you can't respect that, maybe you're the one who's lost." The host chuckled nervously, realizing he had miscalculated. Pam wasn't just another guest to steamroll with smug remarks. She was composed, sharp, and unwilling to back. Down viewers at home flooded social media instantly. Did he really just attack her for wearing a cross? Pam Bondi just destroyed him. Disrespecting faith on live TV, his career is over. Pam wasn't finished. She leaned forward, eyes locked on the host, and delivered the final blow. "You can mock me. You can mock my beliefs. But what does it say about you that you feel the need to?" The host fumbled for a response, but it was too late. The moment had gone viral. Clips of the exchange spread like wildfire, and within hours the backlash was unstoppable. One misstep, one arrogant insult, and his career had crumbled in real time. Pam Bondi had not only defended her faith, she had ended him. The fallout was immediate. Social media erupted, with thousands calling for the host's resignation. Hashtags like "Respect Faith," "Shush Pam Bondi Wins," and "Cancel Arrogance" trended within hours. His employer, a major liberal network, found itself in damage control mode as advertisers started pulling out, unwilling to be associated with the controversy. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi remained composed. She wasn't looking for a fight, but she also wasn't about to let disrespect slide. In an exclusive follow-up interview, she addressed the moment with grace. "This isn't about me," she said. "It's about respect. You don't have to share my beliefs, but mocking someone's faith on national television, that's crossing the line." The network scrambled to defend their host, but the pressure was relentless. Petitions circulated, demanding accountability. Even those who didn't necessarily align with Pam politically admitted he had gone too far. Then came the official announcement. The host had been suspended indefinitely. His once loyal fan base turned on him, calling him arrogant, out of touch, and disrespectful. Former colleagues distanced themselves, unwilling to be caught in the backlash. Pam, on the other hand, was more respected than ever. Her response had been powerful, but not petty. She didn't attack. She simply held her ground. That's what resonated with people. As the dust settled, one thing was clear. Pam Bondi didn't just win an argument. She set a standard. And for the TV host who thought he could belittle faith on live television, his career was over before he even saw it coming. In the days that followed, the disgraced TV host tried to salvage what was left of his reputation. He issued a carefully worded apology, claiming his comment was taken out of context and that he didn't mean to offend anyone's personal beliefs. But the damage was done. Viewers weren't buying it. The clip of him sneering at Pam's cross necklace had already been seen by millions. His words weren't misunderstood. They were crystal clear. Sponsors continued to drop. The network faced pressure from faith-based organizations, conservative groups, and even neutral viewers who simply believed in basic respect. Behind closed doors, executives were in panic mode. They had two options: defend a sinking ship or cut him loose. It didn't take long for their decision. By the end of the week, a short, cold statement was released. "Host's name will no longer be part of our network. We are committed to fostering respectful and meaningful discussions." Just like that, he was gone. A career that took decades to build had crumbled in less than a minute, all because of one arrogant remark. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi continued to rise. Invitations poured in from major platforms, all wanting to hear her take on free speech, respect, and faith. She didn't gloat, she didn't celebrate. She simply carried herself with the same grace and conviction that had made her a powerhouse in the first place. In a follow-up appearance, she summed it up perfectly. You don't have to believe what I believe. But if your first instinct is to mock someone for their faith, that says a lot more about you than it does about them. And with that, she walked away, dignified, respected, and undefeated. The aftermath of the incident sent shockwaves through the media world. Pam Bondi's response wasn't just a mic drop moment. It became a rallying cry. People from all walks of life, whether conservative or not, stood behind her. Respect wasn't political. Meanwhile, the fired host disappeared from the public eye. No major network wanted to touch him. The once arrogant media figure, known for his sharp tongue and condescending tone, had become radioactive. Even former colleagues who had laughed along with his jabs were now silent. Pam, however, wasn't looking back. She had bigger things ahead. Invitations flooded in, talk shows, conferences, even discussions about a potential book deal. She used the moment not for revenge, but as a lesson in standing firm. This was never about me, she told a packed audience at a leadership event. It's about the millions of people who are tired of being mocked for what they believe. You don't have to apologize for your faith. You don't have to shrink back. The applause was deafening. And just like that, Pam Bondi didn't just win a debate. She set a movement in motion. As Pam Bondi's message spread, something incredible happened. People who had once been silent about their faith began speaking up. Social media was flooded with posts of people proudly wearing their cross necklaces, sharing personal stories of times they had felt ridiculed for their beliefs. The hashtag #NownFaithNotTrash started trending, turning what was once a cheap insult into a statement of resilience. Meanwhile, the former TV host tried to stage a comeback. He appeared on a smaller, left-leaning podcast attempting to rewrite history. I was just making a lighthearted comment, he insisted. People are too sensitive these days. But the public wasn't buying it. The host's dismissive attitude only made things worse. Instead of taking responsibility, he doubled down, proving exactly why people had turned on him in the first place. Networks weren't calling. Sponsors weren't interested. Even his own audience had moved on. Pam, however, kept her focus forward. She wasn't interested in petty feuds or dragging anyone through the mud. Instead, she continued using her platform to speak about faith, respect, and standing firm in one's beliefs. She appeared on major news outlets, gave interviews to influential podcasters, and even visited college campuses, where young conservatives and Christians often felt their voices were silenced. They want you to feel small, she told a packed auditorium. They want you to feel ashamed, but when you stand up, not with anger, not with hate, but with quiet confidence, you take away their power. Her words struck a chord. More people than ever began standing up, not just for faith, but for the simple idea that disrespect shouldn't be tolerated no matter who it's aimed at. As for the disgraced TV host, he faded further into irrelevance, a cautionary tale of what happens when arrogance meets accountability. Pam Bondi had not only won the moment, she had reshaped the conversation. And this time, there was no going back. Months passed, but the impact of Pam Bondi's moment on live television didn't fade. It only grew stronger. What started as a single exchange had turned into a full-blown cultural shift. People were tired of being mocked for their beliefs, and they saw Pam as proof that standing firm in faith didn't mean staying silent. She began receiving invitations to speak at universities, churches, and leadership summits across the country. Each event was packed, filled with people eager to hear her message. The response was overwhelming, not just from conservatives or religious groups, but from everyday Americans who believed in basic respect. Meanwhile, the ex-TV host had become a ghost in the industry. His former network had moved on, filling his slot with someone new. No mainstream outlet wanted to touch him, and even the podcast circuit had grown cold. The same arrogance that had made him famous had now made him untouchable. Pam, on the other hand, thrived. Her book, Faith Under Fire, Standing Strong in a World That Mocks You, became a bestseller within weeks of its release. In it, she detailed not just the viral TV moment, but the deeper struggle millions face when their beliefs are belittled. The book resonated with readers who had experienced the same kind of mockery in workplaces, schools, and online. The message was clear. You don't have to fight with hate. You just have to stand your ground. As Pam continued her rise, it became clear. This wasn't just about one debate on TV. It was about a movement, a shift in culture where people refused to be silenced or shamed for their faith. And in the end, Pam Bondi didn't just end one TV host's career. She changed the conversation forever. Pam Bondi's influence only grew stronger. What started as a single viral moment had turned into a national movement. People who had once felt alone in their beliefs now had a voice. A leader who proved that faith and conviction could stand firm, even in the face of open hostility. Media outlets, both conservative and neutral, took notice. Even those who had once dismissed Pam as just another political figure couldn't ignore the undeniable impact she was having. She wasn't just talking about faith. She was showing people how to defend it with grace and strength. At major speaking events, her message remained the same. You don't have to be loud to be strong. You don't have to be hateful to be bold. But you do have to stand. It resonated. More and more people spoke up in their workplaces, their schools, and their communities, unafraid to express what they believed. Respect wasn't a one-way street, and they weren't going to apologize for their faith. Meanwhile, the ex-TV host was all but forgotten. His attempts to claw his way back into the industry failed. No one wanted to associate with him, not because of politics, but because of his arrogance and blatant disrespect. The few networks that entertained bringing him back quickly abandoned the idea when they saw the public backlash. He had crossed a line and there was no coming back. Pam, however, had never been focused on revenge. Her goal wasn't to destroy someone's career, it was to set an example. With her book still topping charts, her speaking engagements growing larger and her influence expanding beyond just politics, it was clear. Pam Bondi wasn't just reacting to a moment. She was leading a movement. And as millions continued to be inspired by her story, one thing became clear. The days of mocking faith without consequence were over. As Pam Bondi's movement gained momentum, she found herself at the center of a nationwide cultural shift. What had begun as a simple moment of standing her ground on live television had ignited something much bigger. People were no longer afraid to push back against the hostility toward faith. Churches, student groups, and conservative organizations rallied behind her, inviting her to speak about courage, conviction, and the importance of refusing to be silenced. She wasn't just a former prosecutor or a political figure anymore. She had become a symbol of unapologetic faith in a world that often tried to shame it. Mainstream media couldn't ignore it. While liberal outlets tried to downplay the impact of her viral moment, independent journalists and conservative networks continued to amplify her message. She appeared on major broadcasts, podcasts, and digital platforms, where she spoke not just about politics but about principles. "This isn't about left or right," Pam said in one interview. "This is about basic respect. You don't have to share my beliefs, but you don't get to mock them and expect silence in return." And that's what set her apart. She didn't engage in petty personal attacks. She didn't gloat over the ex-TV host's downfall. Instead, she focused on the bigger picture, changing the culture of silence and intimidation. Meanwhile, the disgraced host had fully disappeared from the public eye. Once a fixture in the media world, he had become a cautionary tale, a reminder that arrogance and disrespect come with consequences. But Pam, she was just getting started. The demand for her voice continued to grow. She launched a national tour speaking at universities, faith-based events, and leadership conferences. Her speeches weren't about politics. They were about conviction, confidence, and the power of standing up for what you believe in. And it wasn't just conservatives who listened. People across different faiths, backgrounds, and even political views respected her message. The idea that belief, any belief, deserved basic respect was something everyone could relate to. Then came the next big step. With her influence at an all-time high, discussions began swirling about a potential run for higher office. Would Pam Bondi take her leadership beyond the cultural battlefield and into the political arena once again? Speculation grew, and supporters were eager. America had seen her strength under fire. What could she accomplish in a leadership role? As the media speculated about her future, Pam stayed focused on her mission. For her, this wasn't about politics. It was about standing for truth. And whether it was behind a podium, in front of a camera, or leading from the front lines of a movement, one thing was certain. Pam Bondi had already made history, and she wasn't finished yet.